Isn't that good? Boy, it's great. Thank you so much, worship team. So appreciate your heart, your desire. Matthew chapter 5. We're continuing to learn from this incredible section of Scripture. The teachings from the mountain. Christ was really giving us some unique ideas and thoughts that was reshaping an entire culture of hundreds of years of continual lifestyle pursuits. They had only known it this way. And all of a sudden Jesus broke onto the scene and he said, okay, how you're doing it has got to be redirected. What you're doing has got to be somehow or another refocused. And he said because he knew that there was literally going to be, and sitting around that hillside, thousands of folks that wanted to know the answer to the proverbial question, how can we know that we're going to go to heaven? How can we know that we have a relationship with you? How does that look? What does it appear to be? And so Jesus answered that in one verse of Scripture. In Matthew 5, verse 20. He answered the whole thing. In one, just boom. He kind of laid it out there for him. And he said in verse 20 of Matthew chapter 5, unless your righteousness, your right living, how you conduct your activities daily, exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, in no way will you enter into the kingdom of heaven. And at that, their jaws just dropped. Because hundreds of years of their life have been spent under the tutelage of the scribes and the Pharisees. They had listened to them. They had watched them. I mean, it was the practice of these Pharisees to pray daily, and not to just pray once, but 18 times every day. They stopped and prayed to the Lord of heaven. And this group of folks is thinking, my goodness, we'll never get nothing done, Brother Ronnie. We can't get to work. We got to pray 19 times at least. This is what he's saying. We got to stop how we've done that and look differently. And so, out of that one verse of Scripture, Jesus said, I'm going to give you the roadmap. I'm going to lay it out for you. It's not going to be easy. It's going to mess with a lot of your traditions. And it's going to cause you to consider reshaping what your relationship with me looks like. And so that is where we've come to. And he started as we backed away from that introduction there in Matthew 5:20 to begin this roadmap together. And we begin to look at, and he gave them those 8 beatitudes, those qualities and characteristics of life. And he kind of began the whole series that way in Matthew chapter 5, starting there in that first verse. And then he began to unfold them for us. And we've talked about several of them already. And you'll notice that as he began to teach them, he said, not blessed is the man. He said, blessed are. In other words, this is going to be not what you do, but it's going to be part of who you are. Being, not just doing, being. It is the very life that you decide to live. In other words, this gospel message is going to ooze out of your very pores. Get the picture? In other words, it's not about this outward, shiny, glitzy, glamorous stuff. It's about fleshing out this work that God's called us to. Sometimes it's not glamorous. Sometimes it's meaning that as believers, you have to get your hands real dirty. But you realize that as Jesus taught and lived, he expressed the need and the necessity of the believer to engage in the culture where they were. In other words, it wasn't just about, we talked about this a little bit Wednesday night, the business meeting. It was not just about the vertical relationship with him. Everybody gets caught up in that. We get excited about that. We really get on that motive. Just vertical, we just hinge on God. Just hinge on God. And nobody wants to get horizontal with what this thing is. In other words, they don't want to work at going and living out this Christian life. If all we had to do was to get on the cruise ship to heaven and sit back in our staterooms and have the folks wait on us hand and foot until the ship rolled into Glory Boulevard, everybody want to get on that thing. You see, that is where we are in this society, is that we want this comfortable, easy, somehow or another, just show up in heaven and not have to do anything of fleshing out the Christian life. So Jesus said there's some things you got to do. There's some activities that's going to be a part of who you are. Not that you're trying to be showy and glamorous, but that this is just your being, the very soul of what it looks like. And so he said, blessed are the poor in spirit. Now that was an incredible thought, because folks' mindset went immediately to those that were downtrodden, battered, bruised, the most deprived of society. And the Pharisees and the scribes were not that. And all of a sudden he's saying, your relationship to me, when you come to grips with the fact that your spiritual condition is in a poor state, it's not in right standing. If all you want to do it like you've always done it and continue to do it that way, then that lifestyle is not going to put you in position to inherit the kingdom of heaven. And he goes on in this passage of Scripture, and he talks about the mournful because of their condition, their mourning, their spiritual condition. And he talks about meekness and realizing that meekness is not beat down, battered down, but is the inner strength when you relinquish who you are to God, and you get the strength then to somehow or another walk this life out in a community where God's placed you. And last week we talked a few minutes about that whole process of happy. Blessed is Makaros. That's the word. Happy is the person that hungers and thirsts for righteousness, for they shall be filled. And we discussed that and looked at that, what that ought to look like, and how that whole process. I don't know about y'all, but as each one of these come up, there's just little tidbits of each one of them that mess with me. Because I'm living in a society, in a world that says, eat, drink, and be merry. I'm living in an American populace that says that if you got a good 401k, you put back everything you can, that somehow or another you'll get to that point in your life that everything will be fine. That's the American way. It's hot dogs and apple pie and baseball. Is that not what we've been saying? Listen to it today on TV. Just listen. And you'll hear that kind of communicative thought. In fact, nothing about this indicates that that's what it's going to be about. Nothing about it. So you see, Jesus is messing with hundreds of years of tradition when he's teaching this from the mountain. And I dare say that thousands of years of what we have thought it ought to look like is not being touched and just maneuvered and somehow or another being nudged just a little bit. If you listen to it, you'll find that out. Well, that brings us to where we are today. That gets us caught up, and I don't do this every week, but I try to do that occasionally because I don't want us to be messed up. And that brings us to verse number 7. Michael's got that. Put that up for me, buddy. Here it is. Makaros, blessed, happy are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Now that's an incredible, incredible thought. Because the word merciful is Eliamon in the original text. Eliamon means to not somehow or another display mercy, but to be mercy. In other words, it means that deep in the resources of my life, that I extend to my brother or sister mercy based upon my total surrender of who I am to Christ, because Christ is total mercy. In other words, you and I would say, well, I can't be merciful to somebody. I can't have sympathy. I can't have no feeling towards somebody if I haven't experienced the same thing that you have. I want you to know, when you totally surrender to Christ, Christ has felt that. Christ does know that, and he then gives you the ability to have mercy towards somebody that you've never experienced the same thing that they're experiencing, but that you can show and be mercy for them. That's a challenge. And so, when we come to this, it says, happy is the person. Happy are those that are Eliamon, that have surrendered, yielded. You say, well, now, hold on first. I like to hang on to some of my stuff. You know, I got a few good things. I've got to do that. Well, I'll tell you a story, and then we're going to get real busy, because this goes all the way back to the children of Israel, and when Moses brought them out of Egypt. And we're going to look at the 33rd chapter of Exodus for a moment, and you will see what God said about being merciful. Father, I pray that you will just bless this morning. I pray that you will take your word and just etch and scratch and scribble it right into the corridors of our hearts. In a society that is built on selfishness, gluttony, and the desire to exceed everything that has been done in the past, I pray that you will challenge us today. Mess with us, so that when we walk out of here, we'll have a full understanding about what this little piece of the roadmap looks like. Christ's name I pray. Amen. I shared with you a few weeks ago about this little bitty 4'5" lady, Aminte Ross. Aminte Ross, better known as Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was a little bitty, born into slavery. Life was consumed with slavery. Had a burning desire to get out of slavery, to break free from slavery. During the early 1800s, began to plot, plan, and figure out a way to get free. Wanted to enjoy freedom. Had heard about her friends that lived north of the Mason-Dixon line that was experiencing freedom. She just had a desire to do that. So Harriet desired to take off on that journey and to figure that out, and it was a grueling process. She recalled a time when she was there on the plantation, and one of the slaves broke free and ran and got away. And after a while, they caught this particular fella, and they brought him back, and to make an example out of him, the slave owner took his pocket knife and clipped his Achilles and turned him loose. Anybody that's ever had any kind of injury like that knows that was just an awful feeling. She watched that, saw it with her own eyes. Harriet had a passion to break free from all of this awfulness and toughness that was taking place, and eventually got free. Made her way to upstate New York, and you would think that, man, she would enjoy her freedom. Finally free, she's going to get in bond, man, this is it. But that wasn't the case. She became burdened and broken over the condition of her friends that she had left behind. She became so consumed with her family members that were still below the Mason-Dixon line, that were still living in that type of horrendous life, that she began to decide that, you know what, I'm going to lay my freedom down. I'm going to surrender my freedom. I'm going to push it all to the side with the hopes that I might help one or two of them. And the story goes that she made 2 trips yearly, never losing a single passenger, helping over 700 of her neighbors, her friends, her acquaintances make it to freedom. And I want to tell you what her white friends had to say about her. Because as we live in the South, and Ronnie, you and I meet you, we talked about Sunday school this morning just a little bit. We have a tendency to have blinders on, and we have our own particular ideas, and our rearing has been such that at times we have a process and piece of us that has prejudices who we are, and it has that mentality. Her white friend said this about her. As she began to settle down in Syracuse, New York, and the Albany area up there in the northern part of New York State, it was said of her white friends that no less than in her little small house did she have it open to at least 6 or 7 folk of lesser humanity all the time. They lived with her. Those that were epileptic, those that were blind, those that were crippled, those that were the outcast of society. She continued to lay down her freedom, her desire, her things, and just surrender those things. I want you to understand that the call to be merciful means that you're willing to lay down those things in your life that are your freedoms. Surrendering those things, yielding those things to God. This group of folks that Jesus was speaking to, and they never heard such a challenge to somehow or another surrender their stuff, what they were, and that all was started way back in the Exodus chapter 33. And if you read Exodus chapter 33, it is the beginning of the process of when Moses was discussing with God about God traveling with them across the wilderness to the land that he had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the land that was flowing with milk and honey. And God said, I'm not going with you all because you're stiff-necked. You see, they had a problem. They were caught up in who they thought they were, and they thought it was taking God entirely too long to move them, so they started to worship a golden image that was set up there by them. They built their own worship area. Moses said, God, now you better know what you're doing when you start dealing with God like this, okay? Moses had set up a tent outside the camp, and he would go into that tent, and the very pillar of God would ascend on that tent, and that pillar of God would talk face to face with Moses. Can you imagine? Woo. Man, he had that place set up. And there was a little understudy, Joshua, that was along there with him. Then Moses would leave the tent and come back to the folk, and Joshua would hang around a little longer. And that whole process began to show them what their problem was. Their problem is that they did not understand their freedom. They had been set free from 400 years of captivity. And they were so consumed with what they wanted to do in their own timing and how they wanted to do it. I mean, they were in the desert. They're thinking, how are we going to be taken care of? I mean, where are we going to find any food? Where are we going to get something to drink? These livelihood things they were concerned with. And so Moses said to God, okay, you go with us. But God, I need to see something. I need to see your very face. God said to Moses in the 33rd chapter, no one that has ever seen my face has lived. You can't see my face. But I want you to notice what he said to him in the 19th verse. God said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord, and will be gracious to whom I will be gracious. And then notice what he said. I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. He said to him, if you read on in that, God said, when I go by, you can see my back, but you cannot see my face. Because God displayed what it meant to be mercy. This word mercy is an incredible word. The word in Hebrew is ahon. A-H-O-N. Ahon. And that word ahon means basically this: to show favor or to show mercy. In other words, to show what it ought to look like. And our role in society today is to be mercy so that we live out mercy, and that means that we have a tendency to care for those that sometimes we wouldn't even care for. Wait a minute now, preacher. There's folks hurt my feelings. I know that. Some of your feet be messed with, okay, so hang on. Don't run out the door. Hold on. There's some of you that in your families, you have not forgiven people that has harmed you. They've harmed you physically, emotionally, stressfully, and you have forgiven them. You haven't shown them any mercy. You have been a part of churches where people have hurt your feelings, have said things to you, have caused you to have ill will towards them, and have had difficulty on a daily basis of you even functioning. And because of that, you have not shown mercy. It is our desire to lay down these rights that we think that we have and put them on the side and to reach out to everyone, regardless of what they have done to you and how they have done it. Ooh, preacher, hold on now. I want you to know that my God in heaven reached out to me regardless of who I was and what I had done, just as he has to you. He hung on the cross right there. Amen. That's mercy. You get the picture here? I want you to see it. I don't want you to miss this. Because it is our desire today, you want to go to heaven? Everybody here, there ain't nobody in here that be signing up to go to heaven. Nobody. Nobody here. I can't believe that you come to church and say, I want to sign a document today to go to heaven. I think in my heart that everyone wants to go to heaven. Jesus said, if you hope to go to heaven, your righteousness, your willingness to have a right lifestyle that looks like what Christ is explaining has to be a part of your everyday life. Wow. So what does this stuff look like here? What is this Eliaman, this mercy, this somehow or another to extend? And I won't lie to you, I have a hard time with this. I've had a hard time in my own family with this. My children have done things, acted ways, and conducted themselves in such ways that I just want to snatch them up by the nape of the neck. And if you're sitting in here and that hasn't crossed your mind before, you're probably just lying. You understand that that's what happens to us. But Christ said you've got to show mercy. Even when they hurt your feelings. Even when they stomp on your heart. Even when they come into your life and cause you pain and anguish, you have to show mercy because I've showed you mercy. You're a being that is oozing out of your very pores. Happy are those. Not these, are those that are mercy. So you get to this point and have to ask yourself, if it's being rather than doing. In other words, if I've just got to be mercy, if that's what I am, if I've got to be hungry and thirsty after right, if it's a being, then how do I do this? I'm glad you asked that question. What does it mean to be merciful? First of all, that we display a forgiving spirit. That we forgive folks that have hurt us. Being merciful means that we display this spirit. And you look in this Gospel of Matthew, in this Sermon on the Mount, and that's what we find. Matthew chapter 5, look what it says. Verse 23 and 24. Here's what it says. So if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you. In other words, you've hurt somebody's feelings, and they got something against you. Get up, leave your gift, therefore, before the altar, and go. First, to be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. And in other words, when we come to church on Sunday morning, and we have a Holy Spirit, and we've already decided that we've got somebody that's hurt our feelings, and we're not going to forgive them, we need to leave the church house, go settle that issue, then come back and worship. You can't worship any other way. You cannot hope to somehow or another skirt into heaven with any other kind of attitude. You've got to be that kind of folk. Forgiving. Amen. Wow. That's the best folks you hadn't hurt my feelings, preacher. You don't know these folks out here. And people down there Shave a Holler have mean as rattlesnakes. Folks over in Wolf Springs, they just, man, they just like run over you and look at you. Preacher, there are folks at them ball games that I go to every week that say things that hurt my feelings. I want you to understand, that's exactly why we have got to be the shining light of Christ. We've got to be merciful. We must be that way. We've got to be it. It's got to be who we are. It's not a way of learning. It's not a way of somehow or another figuring out another method. You can't go through another study course. You cannot do anything else. You've got to decide, I'm not going to spend all my time vertical. I'm fixing to get real horizontal. I'm going to flesh this thing out. So he says, your life and my life will be one that demonstrates, lives out forgiveness. And we're going to do that when we recognize that we've got issues. Back to the 6th chapter, the same sermon. The 6th chapter, look what he says. And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven the debtors. You see, we have made it so easy in the American society today. Get mad with somebody, just divorce them. Do it. Friend, spouse, child. You realize your child can go to court today and divorce mom and dad. Just because we have made it that way. And we have absolutely, as the body of Christ, said nothing about it. Now we thought a little bit back in our minds, well, that ought not be right. I want you to understand that according to chapter 6, verse 12, it's not a fact of our minds, it is who we are. We forgive our debts, those that hurt our feelings. We lend that out. And that means when my child hurts my feelings, I got to learn to forgive her. When I have my feelings hurt, I've got to forgive those that are hurting my feelings. Now, preacher, that ain't an American way. We're a retaliatory society. When somebody hurts us, we're supposed to retaliate. It's a get even process. You know what I mean? It's not to let that. That is not the teaching that Christ had. He said, I will take care of you. Vengeance is mine, not yours. That's right. You live out the life so that people can know me. I died for the one that's hurting you just as much as I died for you. Oh my. You see, mercy is a unique act. And most folks don't want to deal with it. What does it look like? The very first thing is that we display a forgiving spirit. Second thing is that we display a charitable spirit. Terry was sitting in a charitable situation this past couple of weeks. They had an opportunity to do something that was right. And you know how we are when we do something for somebody. We wonder what they're going to do. How they're going to respond to what we do. Whether it's $2 or $10 or $40 or $100 or whatever. What they're going to do with it. You're going to find that if you display mercy, you don't ask the question of what they're going to do with it. You're going to respond to how God tells you to respond. So you find here in this passage the challenge of having that we display a charitable spirit. Matthew chapter 7. Jesus is continuing in this whole process. Or which one of you, if his son asked him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asked for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? You understand, we have to display the charitableness of the Father. That's mercy. That's being merciful. That's living it out. It's just oozing out of who we are. You and I could complain and gripe when folks, and we know people that might be coming along that are just somehow or another playing a game and they're fleshing through. It's not our position to judge what God needs to take place. They just need to see God. They got to see God. The only hope that a community has of seeing God and living for Christ is the church of the living God has to take a stand for what's right. Charitable giving. We have to be charitable mindful. We have to be folk that are bent towards that. We have to display that. Now I know that some of you probably saying right now, preacher, I'm in trouble. These first two spots are just, he's messing me up bad. Hang on, I'm right there with you. We all will have an opportunity in a minute to take care of it. I'm not going to leave you hanging. Third thing is this: not only should we display a charitable spirit, but that we display a godly spirit. Godly spirit. We backed up in Matthew chapter 5. It's 7, 6, 7, 5. Here it is, 13, 16. Here's a godly spirit. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. It gives light to all in the house. In the same way, get this, here it is. In the same way, let your light, what? Your merciful attitude and actions shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. You understand, that's how we live this out. For the sole purpose of not bringing attention to who we are, but to point men, women, boys, and girls to Him. And the church of the living God has a challenge today to do exactly that. Eliaman, merciful, showing it, being it. It's what we're made of. It is our fabric. We're not to just simply go through the motions. Not another church established to just somehow or another build buildings, amass large fortunes of money, and to not interact in the community. I want us to be so broken and poured out over the hurting and the broken and those that are less fortunate in our community, that we do everything we possibly can to help them. Have mercy on them. Be that mercy of God. God said to Moses, I will show mercy to him. He says to us today, you be that mercy partner so that they can see me. Because I want my family to walk by. I want the pillar of God I want them to experience what it really means to be loved on. You know, I can't imagine what must have took place at that moment. I can't imagine. Can you imagine just for a second? There's thousands of people sitting on the hillside. And Jesus is somehow on the other side. Have us happy of those that are ill, merciful. And they're looking at him thinking, we gotta be this kind of God. We thought we had to do it like the Pharisees and the scribes did. We had to publicly show that we were somehow or other God-fearing people. We had to go to church regularly. Let's move it forward to 2018. We had to have a prayer meeting occasionally. We had to do vacation Bible school. We had to show folks. We had to somehow or another have music. We had to somehow or another. And all of a sudden, you and I realize it's not about us showing folks anything. It's about us living out, fleshing out, surrendering ourselves to be mercy for our whole community. There's no way in the world we can reach Africa if we don't reach Hackney. There's no way in the world that we can do missions out of this country unless we do mission here. There's no way in the world that we can tell our children we love them and not provide every possible means possible for them to get to Christ. So that means this morning somebody needs to say yes to being a Sunday school teacher. We need a 3rd and 4th grade Sunday school teacher. Right now. Not next week, not next year. Right now. We don't have officers come up, teachers late. No 3rd and 4th grade Sunday school teacher. Ain't got that. Folks busy. We got things going on, preacher. I can't do that. I got too much time. Look, we're going to need hundreds of teachers. You might as well go ahead and submit now. It's not going to stop. It's going to be a part of who we are. Because you know what's going to happen is that eventually we're going to be doing little satellite classes over here in people's houses because of the fact they won't come here. We're going to be back there. Mercy. We're going to go into houses where people have been drunk all night. Mercy. We're going to demonstrate love to kids that have been abused and battered and beaten. Mercy. We're going to be that. That's the bridge. And you say, well, preacher, you know, it's a pretty good place, but you done lost it. Hey, I've hung around here a little while. I didn't run on belief. And I want to stay here a long time. And if I didn't do what I'm doing right now, God wouldn't leave me. You see, there's a connection here in between me and you and God. And I got to do what God wants me to do, and you've got to do what God wants you to do. And then we work together to impact right here in the house. So you see, we've got these things. We got folks that we got folks that need to help, be involved. Plug in. But you've got to decide today, am I willing? Just like old Harriet Tubman. And you know what else the white folks said about her? Not just that she was always having that home open for these lower, underclassed, underprivileged messes of humanity in society. They said that there wasn't a day that they did not see her reading her Bible on her front porch before the day started. All the stories about her was that she was a very God-fearing person, had an incredible relationship with God, and that she responded to God's call upon her life to lay down her freedom and to do what she did. This isn't easy, but the challenge is, will you do it? Will I embrace it? Will I be a person that is willing to say, yes, I'm going to surrender my heart? Father, thank you for this morning. Thank you